So hello, welcome to J Designs. Don't worry, we'll get to the flatbed build in a second, but I wanted to cover a couple of the reasons as to why I'm building this flatbed. So the main reason is I want to build a camper. Early on in designing that camper, I realized that it would be better to build a flatbed around the camper, and it's for a number of reasons. Mainly accessibility, so essentially those bedsides aren't in the way and you can access the camper without those bedsides there. The other reason is cooling, so I'm going to have things like AC, and there's going to be a couple other things on the outside of the camper that need to cool, and the bedsides would just be in the way of that. So the other reason a flatbed build would benefit a camper is because of the bedsides. Again, you'd have to have a lot of the features on the camper up above the bedsides. So having no bedsides out of the way, we can drop all those features to the deck of the flatbed and lower the center of gravity of the camper and truck combination. The other reason here is weight. So the factory bed's not tremendously heavy. Toyota actually did a really good job, in my opinion, with that composite bed. But going to a flatbed, I should be able to cut quite a lot of weight out of the truck, and that's going to be important because my camper is going to be pretty heavy with air conditioner, fridge, lots of solar, big electrical system to run those things. So anyways, the truck's going to be heavy, so I'm going to want to pull as much weight out of the vehicle as possible, and I'm going to do that partially with the flatbed build. And one more thing, I've actually built two flatbeds. So there's the one you're gonna see me build in this video, that's the second one. And then I had a first one that was, to be honest with you, a failure, but that failure was instrumental in this flatbed build. With that first flatbed build, I learned a lot about where things need to be placed and just let me generally plan essentially for the next one. That first one was pretty terrible. It was like way too heavy. So I think it ended up being like 160 pounds heavier than the one you're gonna see me build in this video. And a bunch of things were like warped and a lot of the measurements weren't right and stuff like that. So just know sometimes it's good to essentially have a test piece and fail first and then come back and build the real thing. So the one you're going to see me build in this video is going to be a lot nicer, and I tell you what, it'll be really nice to cut up that old one and put it on the nice new flatbed that we're going to build in this video and haul it off to the steel scrap place. Oh, and by the way, just know that to get the flatbed to the point where you see it right now, which will be span out over a couple videos, it took me like 3 months to get to this point right here. So there will be a few continuity errors within these videos, but they're done now. Hope you enjoy. Man, it is really hard to read my notes. I put like YFB, old FB, new FB. So I'm talking about flatbed, but in my notes I keep saying like Facebook, Facebook, Facebook. All right, that's enough talking. Let's get to the build. First step of the flatbed build is to get the old factory bed off, and some of these bolts are pretty rusty, so hopefully they don't break. Anyways, hope you enjoy the flatbed build. Thanks for clicking on this video. Thanks for watching. All right, let's get that thing off of here. If Bertha can't get a bolt loose, she breaks it. Wait, what? So I was gonna rig the bed up to the gantry there and actually lift the bed off, but I think I'll just go do it the old-fashioned way. And there you go. What do you think? This is a ultra weight reduction. It's gonna be a thing, just you wait. So about a year ago, I made this bracket here, and what I was gonna do with that was take the factory cut bed and extend it out and make it full width, but it was just kind of weird joining metal to the composite factory bed. This bracket's super cool though, because it's got a bunch of connections for all the factory wiring harnesses on it, and we're gonna do the same thing on the current flatbed build. It even had the license plate light on there. Obviously the license plate's not there. All right, so with the bed removed, we're ready to start this flatbed build. So the very first thing I did is I went and made 6 of these little blocks that sit on the factory bolt holes. There's one here, and another one right here. They're pretty simple. They're just a 3/16 for the rear ones, and then they're quarter wall for the front two. And then the top plate is 3/16 of an inch. This is what's actually going to bolt the entire flatbed down to the frame of the truck. I tried to make this hold as centered as possible, so I took a lot of time making these. They're a pretty precise height, and that hole should be centered on this 2-inch tube. So it's going to be an inch to this side of the tube and an inch to that side of the tube. That's very important for getting measurements in the future. You can also see in the background there's a level. And that's just to make sure that when I start building out the actual floor of the bed, that it's nice and level. And I've checked with all these blocks and they all should be perfectly level. I think that block over there, the frame is actually offset because I can move these blocks around, and that one's always the low one. And I know that block and this block are the same height. So I'm pretty sure it's my frame that's slightly bent. That one's like a 1/16 of an inch lower. It's not enough for me to really worry about. So we're at the frontmost bed mounting location, and we're right behind the cab here, as you can see, and we're ready to start taking our first measurements. I've already removed the block on that side. I'll go ahead and take this one off. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a measurement from hole to hole on these bed mounting locations, and I'll go do that for all 6 of them. And then we're gonna be ready to cut our very first members. All right, so I've got our first 3 strips of steel cut out here, and I've already got this one, as you can see, jigged up. The main thing I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get this part where the bolt's going to come through and bolt to the chassis, get this surface and this surface parallel to one another, or there's another word for that, where that's a single flush plane on top of here. And then mainly I want the bottom surface under here and this surface on this guy to be parallel and on the same plane. And obviously this surface and that surface to be 90. Got a little magnet in there to hold them together. And kind of a weird setup. I'm sitting them on platforms because my table's not completely flat. It's just a wood table. But yeah, that's the welding setup. And hopefully the distance between that hole and that hole are perfect when they're welded. I'll obviously just tack them at first so we can cut those tacks if they're not perfect. All right, so there's all the pieces bolted down. There's the first one, second one, and third. Super nice. Like, all these actually have very little play in them, so these bolts are not tight. Just to show you how little play there is in them. Super nice to see it all that tight, and all of them fit too. Even the rear ones like that. Barely any play in them, and obviously this is parallel on this one and that one. This one's good in parallel too, but 5 out of 6 ain't bad. This one's pretty terrible. I don't know if you can see it, but this one's like that pretty much. It's pretty bad. I don't know how that happened. I think this tube is twisted, and that's what did that, but I'll have to cut this one off and re-tack it together. That's the part of me fabricating stuff that you guys usually don't see, but I gotta fix this one. It's okay. We just cut the tack welds, grind them back, and then re-weld it and make sure and get it straight next time. But all in all, it's looking super good. This is super cool for me. I know it just looks like 3 strips of steel bolted together between 2 frame rails, but this is super cool for me because this is something that I've been wanting to do for over 2 years now. I think I started that initial flatbed build about a year ago, and then obviously scrapped that one. So seeing the flatbed build, and more importantly, the whole point of building the flatbed is to build a camper on the back of this thing when I'm done with the flatbed. Seeing that come to life is super cool, and this is the first step of it. So hope you'll stay tuned and join me on the rest of the videos that are to come. So this is where I'm at with the flatbed build so far. The next thing I'm about to do is kind of a major step. I'm going to take this big long strip of steel, and we're going to put this one right here. Of course, before I weld it in place, I'll get a bunch of magnets and I'll square everything up. And I'll probably do it off of the truck because right there is a nice big fuel tank. So I want to do as little welding as possible on the truck to keep it away from that gas. The other thing I got to do is I've cut the little extension here. I need to cut an extension for that side over there to bridge to this main piece. Once this main piece is in place, it's going to make it kind of a pain in the butt to remove pieces. Because right now, if I need to weld anything, I can just pick up one of these 3 individual pieces and move it around. And then once I join that one, they'll all obviously be one piece. But that's just what I need to do to make progress. The next thing I'm going to do before I actually cut that piece is I'm going to go V-grind these guys, and I need to weld them. So I want to show you this here. You can see right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grind a V into this part here. And the reason for that is so we can get a lot better penetration with the weld. Let me take it over the whiteboard and I'll explain that a little bit more. So I've drawn this section of tubing right here on the whiteboard. So this radius right here would be this radius on this piece, and this part right here is the flat bar. That's going to be right there. And I'll show you why I'm going to V-grind these guys with this illustration here. So what I could do right now without V-grinding it is I just go weld right here. That'd be fine, and I go and weld right here. However, with this weld right here, we'd leave this little blank space in the middle right here. And because there's a big void there, cracks could start to form right there, and it can go crack this weld and stuff like that. So we don't want that. And so to alleviate that, all I got to do is I'm going to go in on this guy and V-grind on this side of the flat bar. So let me show you that on the illustration. And by going in essentially right here and putting in a V-grind and then removing all that material like so, and then going in and welding it, because of that V-grind, it's not such a tight valley. It's now a big, nice open valley for the weld to fill, and it's going to eliminate any little cracks that, or any little areas that could make cracks occur. And it's also adding surface area to the welded area, so then that weld's going to be a little bit stronger. So let me go make those V-grinds. So that should be good there. I've ground through about half of the material, and you can see this is a nice like gradual V, or I guess not as steep, whereas that is a very steep angle, and it might not get all the way into that crevice in there, whereas here it should have no problem getting in there with weld and making a strong weld. Okay, so what you just saw me do there was square everything up. Essentially what I did is I just ran this piece of metal here that's going to define like where the fender is going to bolt up to this, so it's going to define the location of the fender. And I'm just using these big magnets with a perfect 90 degree to hold them in place. But I also went in and checked it with a level and a square here, and just made sure that this piece is totally straight. Sometimes these little thin pieces of steel will kind of roll across their length, and they'll be curved this way. So that's why I'm checking it with the level. I know I said I was going to weld this piece in off of the truck, but I'm actually going to do it on the truck because I know that the bolt holes here and here will line up when they're on the truck. We'll just be really careful to not make that thing explode. And I'm obviously going to cover up these shocks here. I don't want these nylon lines getting burnt from the hot stuff off the welds. All right, so maybe you can hear the welder running right there. I'm going to go ahead and tack weld these pieces into place. Well, I've also got a piece of cardboard sitting right here to protect the shocks. And then once I'm done here, I'm going to go weld the other side. This bar here does have a slight like roll into it, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little wrench to pry on it and get it in the right orientation. But right now the top of it is actually in the right orientation. I'll have to pry on the bottom to get that straight. Good hot tack weld on her. This one here was too big, so I went and got a smaller square. And yeah, it's just barely off. It's not bad. So all I'm doing is actually just bending that top tack weld that I just did to bend it in place, and then just lining it up with my square. Pretty much just eyeballing it. It doesn't need to be too tremendously accurate. And then we'll weld it in place. And that's it. So I just welded that side. Now I'm going to come weld this side. Got as much cardboard stuff like this to shield the fuel tank that's on the driver's side. Hopefully nothing explodes. I'm just kidding. Nothing should explode. Pretty sure that smoke was just from the off-gassing of the weld. I'm gonna go do the rest of the tack welds now. All right, so I've got this big piece here. There's tack welded here, and then it's tack welded down here. So this part is gonna define the location of the fender. The other side's already tack welded in as well. You saw me do that. The next piece I'm gonna do is join this rearmost piece right here. And I gotta go cut this piece. I'm gonna define this piece by math. So I'm gonna subtract the distance between this bolt hole and that bolt hole from the distance between the two front ones, and then take an inch off here, and then it's actually 2 inches up top. because it's spaced off of that bolt a little bit. The reason why I want to define everything by math is because some of these pieces aren't totally straight, like the pieces of metal aren't. If it were defined by measurement, I might measure it incorrectly, and then one piece will be offset from the other. So by defining everything mathematically, it ensures that all the pieces are the same length and they're all nice, and they're going to essentially make each other square because they're all set lengths defined by math. And then actually I'm going to go lay the very first piece that's not going to be defined by math once I get those cut out. So we're going to node from here. I'm going to connect a big X brace that goes all the way across and it goes to the middle here, and it'll shoot from that corner over too, so there'll be two pieces. And there'll be another piece that comes here and joins in a big X brace between the main bolts. So the factory beds like that, that one doesn't really need to be defined by math. I could go and do a bunch of trigonometry and figure out what that is, but I just don't think it's necessary. And that's going to help. This is all tack welded together right now, and I'm going to leave it tack welded together because if I weld it now with so few pieces in place, the few pieces that are there might be subject to warping, and then everything won't be square, and that's just going to look crappy, so we can't do that. But the big X brace is going to help to keep everything from breaking the tack welds essentially. So anyways, I'm going to go do that math and then go cut those pieces out. All right, so I got to pull this steel frame. I could just leave it on here, but I need to drive this thing tomorrow, and I definitely don't want to drive this when it's just all tack welded together. And I wanted to get this big X brace in here and do the rearmost part, which is not there right now. But I need to drive the truck tomorrow, and it's getting too dark to work, so I'm just going to pull it now and hope no tack welds break. Oh, it's so big, this is going to be tricky. And the center of mass is going to be funky too. This is why I have a crane. Okay, it's not heavy, good. Whew. But it's big and awkward, and it's like I feel it moving in my hand too. And I'm hitting it on the awning here. All right, looks like she survived. I didn't hear any tack welds breaking, so that's good. All right, yeah, it didn't break. It made it over there fine. Didn't hear any tack welds breaking, so that's good. And luckily it's light enough for me to pick up for now. Won't be like that for long. All right, so I went ahead and cut these pieces here on both sides and welded them in, as you can see. So now they're part of the entire structure. The cardboard is just here to protect the wiring that's right here. As I was welding, there's a lot of spatter that happens, and I obviously don't want to be burning holes through any wires. So the next part is this X brace here. There'll be another big part on that side over there. I just can't hold both. But before I put that big X brace in, I need to go pull the flatbed off of the truck and complete the very first complete weld right here. The reason why I've held off this long on doing any full welds is because when doing the full welds, the part that you're creating is subject to a lot of warpage just due to the heat. It's having a bunch of tack welds and a lot of material around those parts are going to minimize the amount of warpage because you just have a lot more material supporting those tack welds. And there's a plane going over by. I don't know if you can hear that. Anyways, gives me time to think. I'm going to be doing those full welds off of the truck, mainly because the full weld on this side's fine. Especially the exhaust, there's a bit of wiring here. I can cover that up. But on that side, we're right over the fuel tank, and I'm still driving this truck around as my daily. And there's a 3/4 of a tank in there. So I don't want to be welding over that fuel tank. So I'm going to take that part off. I'm going to do that weld, and I'm actually going to do another weld in the corner here. Got to get the other bridge piece that's close to the cab, and that'll keep these square pieces in place as well. And then there's going to be another X brace right here. And so consequently, I'm going to go do full welds right here. But just in those, well, 3, but double it per side, 6 locations. And those are the only ones that are going to get full welds. So let me get to that. It's kind of hard to see, but I got the frame leaned up against here to do those first couple of welds. But I just want to show how like wonky it is right now. But then once I go and get this X brace in, I want to show you how much more rigid it's going to get. So remember that. And so as you can see, the big X brace is welded in here now. Look how much flex there is. Pretty much none. So that flex, you can't see it, it's off screen, but that's the pieces that aren't fully welded yet down there on the bottom. It's essentially just straight bar deflecting. Once we get more structure down there, that won't have any flex in it. But no flex up in here, pretty much at all. It's pretty amazing how adding 4 members in the right places can make something super rigid. The big X brace has been added. That's added a significant amount of weight to it. It's pretty hard to lift off of the truck now, but it's going to add a lot of strength when it's done, so it's worth the weight. Also, what was I going to say? Also, you're going to notice it's not a perfect X. If I had made it a perfect X, the X would have met about here somewhere, and it just makes it kind of weird to weld stuff to it like that, because it would have met here, and then I would have needed to add another member in the middle here. I did that on the old flatbed build and didn't really like that. It's just a lot easier to node the X out right here on this member that's already here. So anyways, now that that's over, the next step is to go add the last couple of members. There's going to be one right here that shoots all the way across from this side and into the other side. And then there's going to be one that comes out right here. So this one and the previous one I just talked about are going to define the location of the fender. So once those are in, we'll have a nice box right here and we can start building out the fender. And then once this one right here that's going to define the rear of the fender is done, there's going to be 2 more members, one that just continues this one that's already here, and there'll be a rearmost one that's right here. I don't know if this rearmost one I'm going to go with either angle or I'm going to go with flat bar like the rest of this, and I need to design the rear tailgate first. Totally forgot to do that, so I'll do that tonight, and then tomorrow I'll be able to come out and cut that rear member. But all these members are actually going to be defined mathematically, so I can just go over to the chop saw and cut them out, and they all should line up perfectly. The only one that's not going to be defined mathematically are the ones between these, between the X brace over here, and that's just because I'd have to go do a bunch of trigonometry to figure out the lengths of that. And I don't know precisely where it's going to land, but I will know where it's going to land once I make this little piece here. And then those 3 in the middle will just get defined by measurement. All right, so I got all my measurements to the chop saw. You got to watch where you step around here. It's kind of dangerous. All right, so I got one of the pieces that you just saw me cut rigged up right here, and this dimension right here is equal to this dimension here. That's the beauty of defining everything mathematically, so I know that this is all perfectly square. I'm going to go ahead and weld it in. Sometimes the magnet messes with the weld, so I'm going to take it off. All right, now we're going to go do the other side. So I'm about to weld in this member and this member. These ones are the ones that are going to define the location of the fender here, and this is going to define the how far the bed goes out on this side. But I just wanted to show how I'm squaring everything up. So this big magnet here keeps this at a 90 and make sure this is going to be the correct length this way, because if it's angled like that at all, it's going to be shorter, obviously. And then to keep them level in this direction, I've got a big 8-foot level running from that frame rail across the top of this guy, and then that's how I'm keeping this from not being parallel to the ground or parallel to the top of the bed. And you probably can't see it in the video, but I've got it like a 1/16 of an inch. How you doing? I've got it like a 1/16 of an inch high here to counteract any bending that would happen right there. And then the last thing I do, it's going to be kind of hard to see on video again, but I come in with a square, and that's controlling like roll. And this plate here, you probably can't see it, but there's a bigger gap up top than there is in the bottom. So I got to go correct that on this one here. And then I'll go weld this and the other one in place. Alright, so I just want to show you this part before I get too far along with it. I kind of forgot to record. So this is going to be where the actual tailgate hinges on, this part here. And this is what it's going to actually, this piece is going to bolt up to the truck on. So this will get welded into the flatbed frame. And these holes, once I drill them out to their final size, so I did a starter bit and then we'll go to their final size. And then we'll tap them and then we'll be able to just bolt this up underneath here. And all those holes line up, as you can see. Part will stay on the truck and this part will be on the tailgate. So the tailgate will be able to fold down and then we can pull this part out and we'll have a tailgate that can be removable. That's important for when I make the camper. I don't want bedsides on it. They're just kind of in the way. This is two parts as well. So there's one for the left side of the truck, one for the right side of the truck. All this squiggly area in the middle will get removed. It's just easier to hold it in the drill press being a big part like this versus having two tiny parts. There's the part with all the holes drilled to size. Now we got to tap this. That used to open, I promise. There we go. So anyways, a bunch of junk in the drawer. Anyways, so we're going to be drilling those holes on that plate out to 1/4 by 20 on this guy. It's 1/4 by 20 and that means we need a 13/64 drill bit. There's the 1/4 by 20 tap. Alright, I think that tap just broke through. It's the last one. It's been about 15, 20 minutes drilling these holes. It probably wasn't all that long, but felt like a long time. Takes a long time to drill and tap stuff. But anyways, it's dark outside. I'm hot. Not like that. I'm hot, ready to go inside and take a shower. You can't see it. Flatbed's right behind the camera, but it's looking really good. Anyways, see y'all tomorrow. There's the part, by the way. We'll cut that in half tomorrow. So we're at the very back of the flatbed here, and I've got one of the last pieces that are going to go on the actual frame of the flatbed. And it's this big piece of angle here. Let me get you in closer, and then I'll explain what I'm doing. So you saw me make this piece here. This is the one that's drilled and tapped to accept the tailgate. So this piece of angle is going to be rotated up like this when it's finished. But just to show you what's going on here. So this component here is the hinge piece for the tailgate. This little guy will get welded in between here, and then it'll allow the tailgate piece to bolt up on here, and then that'll make the tailgate removable right there. So I'm building that, and the way this is going to go onto the angle is this guy is actually going to pass through the angle. So you can see here, I've actually went in and marked, and we're going to completely window this section out. So I've got about 8 holes to drill across here, and then I'll come in with a die grinder and open this up and make a full window so that this piece can pass through from this side and go to that plate that it's going to bolt up to. The other thing I've got this piece of angle marked up for is this big light bar. So this is a big extrusion, and it's going to house the rear tail lights and the reverse lights in this big old light bar. So there's bolt holes going all the way down this piece of angle for that. And the last thing is I'm going to use these guys for turn signals, and they're going to go on the outer corner, and there's 4 holes for these on each side. So that's a lot of drilling and a lot of pre-planning that went into this part, but now I'm ready to take it over to the drill press, create this window, create the holes first, and then create this window here. So here's what this section looks like once it's been drilled out. I still got to go in with a die grinder and make this a full window, but that's what it's going to look like for now. And here's what it looked like before. So there's just a bunch of center punches and the locations marked. I've also went ahead and drilled in all these holes here for the side marker lights and that rear light bar. I was going to do all that drilling in the drill press, but that piece right there is just way too long, so I just did it with the hand drill. All right, so we got the die grinder here. For those people that don't know, die grinder just got like a carbide bit on the end. It's kind of like a mill, but you hold it in your hand, obviously. So let's see if we can even fit that guy in here, and then what I'm going to be doing is just milling over with the die grinder. See if it works. So there's the window. It ain't the prettiest thing in the world, but luckily it don't need to look too pretty because this part is going to insert through it and you're not even going to be able to see these holes. But I will go in and clean it up with like the file or with the die grinder. But this piece is actually done for now. I think we're almost ready to weld this whole big long piece to the truck. So normally I wear a shirt in my videos, but it is way too hot to wear a shirt right now. It's kind of an issue because normally I have this mic and I clip it to my shirt and that's how I get good audio for y'all. But I really don't want to do that right now. So I got this piece of denim that I have laying around the garage and I'm just clipping the mic to that like so, and that's how I'm getting audio for y'all. Way too hot to wear a shirt right now. Let's see if I can't break the flatbed by jumping on it here. It's nothing but tack welds holding it on right here. Okay, it didn't break. I didn't hear any pings. So there's going to be a drop bracket right here that holds my actual starting battery. I'll get into why I want the starting battery back here some other time. But the point is I have some pre-drilled holes here that I put riv nuts in. And I did those off of the truck like before this little part got welded in. There's also going to be some potential brackets behind this wheel. And I forgot to drill those ones while those members were off the truck. They're already welded in there now. So we're going to drill those holes for the riv nuts while they're on the truck. The other side of this bracket, by the way, and the other side of that bracket will just bolt into the fender because it'll come down right here to cover the wheel. So let me go build those. So here we are at the rear of the truck. I was about to weld this piece in right here, but like I was saying, I want some holes here for rib nuts at the back. And I need to drill them first because once that plate's in, I won't be able to drill in here. So I took a couple measurements, made a couple marks, and we're ready to go drill these out, and then we'll slap some rib nuts in here. All right, and there's the 4 rib nuts. So it just accepts a nut like that. I can tighten up. So this one's so far inset from this part because it needs to dodge the leaf spring there, and we've got the reservoir. So anything that mounts is going to kind of go here and come over. If I decide to mount anything there, I'm definitely mounting something there. It's going to be a battery on this side, and hopefully get a toolbox on that side. But I don't know if I'm going to mount anything back here yet. Anyways, now we're ready to go put this part on here. So again, that's what's carrying. The tailgate's going to bolt up to that. Turn signals go here. Big long light bar. That's going to be our rear lights. Should look pretty sweet. She's getting there. So I've got the tarp here covering up the bare steel flatbed just in case it starts raining. Don't want that getting wet. It gets rusty and it's a nightmare to weld on. But anyways, so this part here is going to go on the back right about there. We're almost ready to weld it into place after all that work. This is going to mount the tailgate, tail lights, and the rear light bar again. You'll notice I put some little X's on here. Hopefully you can see that. Anyways, I'm going to remove material because when this piece is set up to this plate, we've got a piece of 1/8 inch material and a piece of 3/16 material, and that's just more material than we need right there. It's additional weight essentially, so I'm going to go cut out this little square here. It's just unnecessary material, and then we're ready to weld it in place. Hopefully when I cut out this piece of material, this thing doesn't bend. So a lot of times when these things are manufactured, it relies on like material being here to keep this part straight. So I may cut this out and this thing will go poing because there's going to be a big hole there. We'll see. It shouldn't be too hard for me to bend it back in place if it does do that because it's only 1/8 inch material. But anyways, let me go cut these parts out, see what happens. All right, so I went ahead and tack welded this rear piece in here. And again, this part right here is going to house the turn signals, and it'll have a big light bar that shoots across. And you'll see we have our window here, and that's where the hinge for the rear tailgate is going to slide in. So now that that's welded in, ready to move to the next step. Showed me building these guys earlier. So these guys are going to slide in right here, and then this is where the tailgate piece is going to bolt into. So it's going to go in through this window and then bolt up to this part. Once it's tack welded in place, I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so this part right here is finally done. So this piece right here is slid in through that window that was created in this back piece here. And as you can see, it's bolted in. So I am gonna get bolts that are the right size for that, and there's no washers, so they just stick up a little high right now. But they will be flush with this surface when I'm done making it. I just got it mocked up so I can show you what's going on here. So this part here is where the tailgate's gonna hinge. So we'll have a piece either bolted up on this side or this side, and that'll kind of hinge down like so. And that'll create the tailgate. We'll obviously have a strap over here that keeps the tailgate at 90 degrees when it's in the down position. And then when you can remove those two tie bar pieces, and then the tailgate will flip down and the tailgate can be completely removed. So that's the point of creating this window here. Anyways, that's a lot of parts and a lot of pre-planning to get this part right here done, but it's finally done. That's how the tailgate would operate. So I know it's kind of hard to see because I can't take the flatbed outside because it's been raining all day, but the flatbed's right here, this big thing here. Since I can't go outside, I do have a couple more things I need to do, like welding in these small little brackets for electrical connections and stuff like that. But I kind of want them on the truck so I can place those electrical brackets in the right place. So hopefully it won't be raining tomorrow and I can do that. But I still want to utilize my time in the garage today. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to actually go in and weld. Hopefully I get to all of them today. That's a lot of joints to weld, so it might take a while, but it's probably gonna be like a half an hour of welding. I'll let you know when I'm done. It's really not that hot today. It's probably only like 75 or so, but it's really high humidity because it's been raining all day. Now I'm gonna be fully suited up like this, so it's gonna be hot, but that's all right. Got to get the work done. But anyways, I'm gonna weld all these members in. And before I weld, I'm gonna have a wire brush in my pocket, and I'm gonna clean all the joints off prior to welding. That's just gonna make sure that the welds don't get contaminated with like grinding dust and other things that aren't steel. Because this has been tacked together for probably like a month now, from the very beginning. It's taken me a while to get to this step, so it's gonna be really cool to see it all welded. And then after that, what's the next couple steps? Once everything's welded up, I got to go buy a top sheet tomorrow. So it's the one that's going to cover this whole piece. And then we're ready to start the fenders that are going to go in here. Anyways, let me get to like an hour of welding. Yeah, it's going to be hot, but I'm going to get it done. It'll look great when we're done. You gotta remember that when you're working on one of these super long-term projects. All right, so I did all the welds on this side. So now I'm going to flip the bed over, and then almost done welding. Then I got to do a couple welds from the top side. Other than that, I'm done. It's about it's 9:10 right now. I've been out here welding for probably an hour, 30 minutes, something like that. And probably be another half an hour, but we're almost there. Get this thing flipped over. Try not to burn myself. Somebody, pretty hot. Almost lost it. All right, there we go. Now I can access the welds from this side. All right, and that's the flatbed build thus far. Sorry to leave you hanging there, but we'll cover the rest of the deck of the flatbed build in another video, and there will be many more videos to come. So in this video, we got quite a lot done, so that's great. We got the whole frame of the flatbed built out and a lot of the pieces are in place. There's only a few more to add. In the next video, I'll be adding the top plate to the flatbed and actually making it a real bed. And then we'll be just doing a couple little tidying up things, doing a little electrical stuff, or at least brackets to locate electrical stuff, and then painting it up, and then we get to see it on the truck. So make sure and stay tuned if you want to see that stuff. There's also a lot more coming in future videos. So I got to build out the fenders. Each fender, they're really nice, by the way. They're all aluminum and they're probably like 150 bucks just in like material, not including my labor, obviously. And then on top of that, I'm going to be relocating the battery from the front of the truck to underneath the flatbed. The flatbed's going to get an air compressor. The truck is getting airbags and airline tracks for strapping stuff down. It should be super cool. So hopefully you'll go hit that little red button below and join me on this really cool journey. If you went and did that, thanks a lot. It helps me out a lot. It keeps me motivated to keep pumping out these videos and to keep building stuff. But with that, I'm Jay. You've been watching Jay Designs, and thank you so much for watching.